So Falcon family, we're here again. Principal Brown bringing you back. This is the last part of our series, and I would like to say I'm saving the best for last. But again, I have in front of me a dear friend of mine, Mr. Will Pass, who is going to talk about his position and where he's at, and just pretty much his story and how he got to achieve the things he's achieved in life. So, Will, as I have you here, the first question I wanted to ask you, man, if you could tell people your name, what you do for a living, and just a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Well, my name is Will Pass. As Mike stated, I am the current Chief Financial and Chief Operating Officer for HAI, which is spelled CHAI, and that's acronym stands for Comprehensive Housing Assistance Incorporated. I've only been with the organization since December. Prior to that, I was the Chief Operating Officer for the Wilmington Housing Authority in Wilmington, Delaware. So in my position with HAI, I manage all the finances for the agency, and as well as the operations. We are a all-encompassing sort of organization, meaning that we provide housing services, social services as well. So it's a very extraordinary task that we undertake as an organization, and I love the ability to work in a facet where I can help change folks' lives. So it's a very humbling experience for me.
Appreciate it, man. A lot don't know. Will and I went to high school together. Another Edgewood High School alum. So, right. Supporting the Rams there. Tell me about a little bit about your background. Obviously you grew up. As far as I know in Edgewood, I don't know the entire time in Edgewood, but how was your upbringing and what were you like in high? I know what you were like in high school.
What was I like?
You're a funny guy. As far as I knew, you were one of the funniest guys that I knew in high school. So,
man, I appreciate that. I don't know about that, but I appreciate it. No, yeah, like you said, man, I'm from the Baltimore area. I mean, I'm originally from West Baltimore. We didn't spend, at least for me, I didn't spend that much time there. I mean, my siblings did. Moved out to Harford County, and I was probably, early, I don't know, maybe like 7 or 8 years old. You and I, like you said, we went to Edgewood High School. I'm the youngest of six, single family home. My mom raised us all herself, hardworking, saint in the flesh, as they say, a beautiful woman, this beautiful spirit. In high school, I played sports, I played some football, ran some track a little bit, hung out with some of the big dogs there. And like you said, man, I consider myself a funny guy, but also, somebody who cared for his peers to a certain level and still do. So I think that's always important.
Yeah. And like I said, the sports, you always were, a great teammate, great classmate. If there's always something that anybody needed, you never turned anybody down, man. So, and even after high school and stuff like that, you're always somebody that you can call in times of need. So, always been a stand-up guy, in my opinion.
I appreciate that, Mike. Thank you.
So, talking a little bit about your career, how did you get interested in? Because it's kind of unique. I don't think like you probably thought in high school that like, okay, I will be doing this type of work. When did you start to get interested in that, and who or what was your motivating factor?
I got interested in it as a way of giving back, and well, I'll explain what I mean by that. When we moved to Edgewood, my mom was part of a program we would call ROSS right now, in its current format, which stands for Resident Opportunity for Self-Sufficiency. She lived in Section 8 housing prior to us moving out to the county. Mm-hmm. And through that program, she was able to purchase a home that I ended up, fully much growing up in for the most part. And I seen how it impacted her life and my siblings' life as well in a positive light. So I knew about that aspect early on. I would say I got into it as an adult because I had that always playing in the back of my mind where I kind of wanted to give back to folks, particularly in the scenarios that I deal with folks who primarily look like us. And I always think that's important too. So I'd say, that experience and just the help that she received and how it greatly impacted us kind of helped me make that decision to kind of move from more of a corporate dynamic to more of a services dynamic. So it's key, and getting into the housing game, what I learned early on is there's not a lot of folks in those high level positions, unfortunately, that look like you and I, and that can relate to the community that they serve. So I made that a goal of mine as well, which made me kind of circumnavigate the country here in the last 4 to 5 years to achieve my current status. So yeah, that would be my motivating factors. My mom, my upbringing, and just the chance and the opportunity to kind of give back to my community and show them that there is a possible way out and a avenue to a better life.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. What did it take along the way for you to get to your current position? I know you talked about traveling around, doing some other things. You and I have talked
Yeah.
privately about it, but and talk a little bit about that, and also what certifications. I see the plaques behind you, the degrees behind you. Like,
Yeah.
what does it take, and what schooling do you have to get to where you're at?
Oh man, it took a lot. I mean, we had touched on this conversation the other day when we had our call. For whatever reason, and it's not always the case, so I don't want to sort of play that call per se, but opportunities for us aren't always there as they are for other individuals. Let's just say that. For me personally, I've been in school primarily my entire adult life. I have, not that I'm being facetious, but I have like 5 degrees, man. I have 2 bachelors. I have an associate's, man, in accounting. I have a bachelor's in engineering, a bachelor's in accounting, and I have a double master's, an MBA, and an MS in management. But for this particular position, I had to get certified in various aspects of housing. RAD, which stands for Rental Assistance Demonstration, LIHTC, which stands for Low Income Housing Tax Credit, and I had to get my executive director certification. And I'll tell you how I got it, man. It's a pretty interesting story in my opinion, and it was somebody who gave me an opportunity to crack that glass ceiling. Working for the Baltimore Housing Authority, I was able to make some connections through various organizations such as NARO and FADA. And through NARO, I connected with someone by the name of Simone Gaines, who runs Gaines Associates. And her and I had a good conversation from time to time. And she mentioned to me, that she knew someone that was looking for a CFO out in California, Marin County. Happened to be Louis Jordan. They offered me the opportunity. I interviewed. I took the opportunity with the caveat that Louis would allow me to, I guess, fly back and forth primarily to visit my family, but also to take the certification courses I needed at Rutgers University, because Rutgers has a program with FADA that allows you, it's a series of 10 courses to get your certification to be an executive director. So it took all of that. It took circumventing the country, spending time in California, which was great. Don't get me wrong. Spent about 18 months out there, but I was away from family, away from friends, having to fly back and forth. There's always a concern, particularly when you have small children. My now 7-year-old would call me and be crying on the phone, and you know how it is, man.
Yeah.
It's just a lot. So I started in California, ended up in upstate New York for a brief period of time, and then in Wilmington, and now my current position. So again, circumnavigating the growth, becoming very well versed in your job overall through certifications and through practical practice, doing the job day to day. That kind of helped me transcend, and as we said the other day, kind of crack that glass ceiling, so to speak. So yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, I want people to hear that, right? Because I don't want people to think that, a lot of times you see somebody where they are, and think like, oh, like I could do that, that's not a problem. Yeah, you can. However, it's going to take some work. It's going to take some, you being uncomfortable probably at different moments.
Mm-hmm.
And, all of that is going to be worth it on the other end, but you have to be able to persevere through a lot of those things. And you also had a plan for yourself as well,
Yeah.
And it seems to me that you weren't going to be denied. So,
No, sir. No, sir. And like you said, man, you tell your story too, man. I don't want to, put you on the spot, but you dealt with something similar. And real quick for me, in terms of my plan, I wrote it down, man. Years ago, I used to listen to a lot of his motivation stuff. I still do. But Les Brown comes to mind, and he said, you got to write your plan down and make it simple and make it plain. So I wrote my steps down, man. I wrote what I needed to do. I just kept tackling one after the other, and one after the other until it became a realization for me. But it didn't happen overnight. We weren't birthed into this. I wasn't birthed into it. Neither were you. So it's a process. And it's not for the faint of heart. It really isn't. You got to give up a lot to get to that next level. But when you get there, man, it's a beautiful, beautiful feeling. But no, I think folks need to know your story, man. Tell them. I don't know if you want to share it or not, but tell them, man. Tell them what you had to go through. It was interesting.
My thing is, like I said, it is not about me, but a lot of people don't know. But I mean, starting out humble beginnings, starting out teaching, in Baltimore City Public Schools, I didn't intend for that to be, something I was going to do long term. I thought that like maybe I would be working in the nonprofit sector, like you talked about being some type of executive director, being a head of maybe a nonprofit organization. And, I saw the need that was there with the kids in the city. And I also saw, where, in leadership, it was needed. You needed somebody that was there that was going to be able to build those positive relationships with students that exceeded, just those negative thoughts that we think about city kids, like, they're lost cause or whatever. So with that, I had to have a plan though. Like you said, it wasn't just, hey, I want to do this, I'm passionate about it. It was writing it down. Okay, this is what I need to do, researching it, right? Googling exactly what it is. What schooling do I have to have? Which ones are the best schools for me? And then going to school, to get that, along with, having a full-time job, as we make it seem like it's easy. It's not. And getting that, and on top of that, being able to be versatile enough to go on multiple interviews and those type of things to get what you need. And even in this particular job, I interview. I mean, I interview so many times, Will. Like you don't have any idea. And most people don't. Like if I tell them, they probably be like, I don't understand. But that's the difference that I think when you're talking about being a person of color versus somebody that's not. I mean, I've known colleagues that like they may have gone on maybe 2 or 3 interviews their entire lives.
Yeah.
Dude, that was probably me in like maybe 1 week when I was really trying to become a principal. And, I had gotten so good at it that I was like a professional interviewer. Sat down, I could just give you whatever it is you need to know. Like I was really good at it. But it took a lot of perseverance, man. So you hit the nail on the head.
And it's funny you say that, Mike. One of my best friends, I'm gonna see him later on this afternoon. He called me that for years. He's like, man, you're like a professional interviewer. Like you're just interviewing the interview. And I'm like, nah, man, it's definitely with a purpose, but it's a process, right? You know what I mean? So no, it happened, right? And it was a good thing. So
yeah, and then you get the nose. I think Michael Jordan said, it's not about, people don't see all the shots you miss. You see the game winning shot. But what about all the ones he missed? Like he's thinking about that. Other people don't. They just see the successes. For me, I'm always thinking about that. Even to this day, like I carry that chip on my shoulder because it's like I remember the people that told me no very, very vividly. I could probably run it down to you, right? And I still feel some type of way about that because I feel like I was better than the people that they hired. So what? I guess getting into your job now, what's the most difficult part of it, and what's also the most rewarding part of your job?
I'd say the difficult part is certain aspects, right? One is ensuring there's funding available for some of the duties that we perform in the community. And what I mean by that, High does a lot of social service work, food donations, community cleanups, social work, social services. So we are funded by at least 35 different funding sources. So that you're kind of imagining that, juggling that. On top of that, I manage a staff. I'm looking to change some of the processes that we currently have in place to make us more streamlined. And then you add on top of that what I call the icing on the cake is now we're embarking on a series of builds over the next 5 to 6 years, probably doing at least one new build a year in the Park Heights community. Anything from multifamily housing to senior housing are going to kind of go up in the next few years. So ensure you have the proper funding available, reaching out to possible partners to partner with you on these builds, and then managing the day-to-day operations of the agency, I would say. But by contrast and by context, the same aspect kind of follows up with the reward piece. I mean, you're going to provide new affordable housing for folks in that community. You're going to be able to change folks' lives. We talked about earlier, change folks' lives and make things better for folks who live in those communities so that they can become the Mike Browns of the world or the Will Passes and other great folks that we know that can constantly give back and just keep reaching back and building that next level for that next group to come in and be more successful, right? So I think that's the rewarding aspect for me is being able to give back at some point, some level through the job that I perform on a day-to-day basis.
Have you through your work, have you gotten, or families have like contacted you just to like say thank you? Like, have you seen some of those type of personal rewards from what you do?
I have, man, and it started probably in Marin County. Uh, we were going through a process of when I was there where they were going to do their first RAD project, which stands for Rental Assistance Demonstration. They were converting long-term public housing site that had been there since the 50s to affordable mixed family mixed use. I had a lady there who was our RAB president, which stands for Rental Advisory Board or Resident Advisory Board, and she was she was a piece of work. Let's just say that, not in a negative way. Like, she was gung ho about the community, and she was a staunch opponent of the housing authority. And my ED at the time was like, I can't do nothing with her. I said, well, let me go out and talk to Miss Royce and have a conversation with her. And I did, and we built a rapport, and I got to know about her. I got to know that she did a lot of work in the community. She worked with the Panthers back in the 60s. I mean, she is an awesome woman. And then we built a rapport, right? So she went from being a staunch opponent of the entire process to coming on board, helping us pick our developer partners for the various projects that we're going to be undertaking for the RAD deal. And we went from, not me personally, but the housing authority here, went from being staunch enemies to quick friends over a period of time. And that encompassed some legwork for me. And I was meeting with her after hours, taking her to lunch, just building that rapport with her, man, getting to know her. But it worked. So yeah, I would say that's one of my biggest, claims of fame. And others are like introducing programs. Like in my time in Wilmington, for example, there's a program called Youth Build that the Department of Labor runs. And I knew about it from my time at the Baltimore Housing Authority and other places. So I wanted to introduce that to that community up there. And I did start that prior to me leaving. But I know that once that comes to fruition, that'll be a positive, significant impact for that community. You can get a little over $1 million a year to run that program. And what that program does, and I know you appreciate this by being in education, is that it allows kids to who aren't really successful in the day-to-day school world to kind of come back and get their GED and take some sort of trade, and whether that be electrical, HVAC, plumbing, et cetera, to help them, get over that hump, get over that hurdle, and be successful. So instead of routing them the traditional path of college and higher education, you're moving them over to the trades, which there's a dire need for those students there as well. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that plays out and some of the stories that's going to come from that too.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I know it has to, even though you're in it, it has to make you feel good when you see your hard work come full circle. I know that probably happens all the time, but I think it's something that, the people probably want to know and want to hear about, how rewarding your job is. This is probably one of the more difficult questions.
Yeah, man.
Ask it because it is Black History Month, right? And so being an African American male, and from your perspective,
Yeah.
have you had to deal with racial issues? You talked about all the different places that you've been and everything you've done to get to the place where you are.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have to deal with racial issues, growing up or ascending or in college or any of those things, or even where you currently work?
Sure. I mean, growing up, I think we both know the answer to that. There was, there's always that's why you can laugh. There's always a stigma placed on folks who grew up in a Route 40 corridor, as they say, right? Whether it's right, wrong, or indifferent. I never appreciated it. And like you said earlier, as it relates to the whole interview process, I carry that chip with me, right? I still carry it today. I want to ultimately outprove and outshow folks who think that you're not supposed to be in certain mediums.
Look, let me break this down for the viewers, right? So in Harford County, like I said, much respect to Harford County, got much love for Harford County. However, the demographics are, you had what was called Route 40 schools. So that was Edgewood High School, Aberdeen High School, Havre de Grace High School. Am I missing any? Oh, yeah,
Joppatown, yeah.
So these were your Route 40, which means you could travel Route 40 and reach all of those destinations, right, Route 40. Those particular high schools were more diverse than some of your high schools that were in some of the more rural, affluent areas in Harford County. That'd be Bel Air High School, Falston, and Simone Wright, those type of areas. So when we're talking about that, That's what Will is talking about when he's talking about the 40 quarters. I just wanted to break that down.
Yeah. I don't want to name any names, but yeah, you did it.
I
So
mean, just public school. They're gonna find out. They know we went to Edgewood. It's not hard to really Google that and find that out. So I'm not even gonna hide that fact. But
no,
that's
I'm
what.
teasing you, man. I'm teasing you. But no, to back to your question, yeah, there's definitely a stigma there, and it's almost like, and again, we had this conversation the other day. This is why I love you, man. I appreciate you because we share those same sentiments. You're not supposed to be in certain rooms. You know what I mean? For whatever reason, there's always that thought there. So. As I said, I got these degrees on the wall, and my uncle, God rest his soul, he would say, "Man, you got all that paper on the wall. Like, what's that for?" That was part of that for me. It was like, look, I'm not supposed to be here, so I'm going to show you guys why I belong, right? And I'm going to prove it over and over again. Now, in terms of my career, yeah, I've seen it firsthand on many levels, and it can be the slightest thing sometimes. And early in my career, I really took it to heart, but now, so as I've gotten a little older, I kind of let it go. And I'll give you an example. I could be giving a presentation, mostly financially related, because that's my background, and talking about budget or just overall operations of an organization, and relaying it in a fashion where it's greatly understandable for folks, and I'm breaking it down in details. And someone will say, and again, I got to preface it. I'll be in a room where I'm probably the only person of color out of like maybe 20, 25 people on average, right? And someone will say to me, "Oh, you've picked up on this so quickly, right? Or you've done a great job, elaborating on this information." And it's like, man, so I got the devil on my right shoulder. It's like, man, you hear that? And it's like, nah, and then the angel on my left shoulder was like, nah, that's not what they meant. That's not exact. But early on in my career, man, it would burn me up. It really would burn me up. But I've gotten, used to it to an extent, not that it makes it right or wrong or validates it, but I learned to really just take it with a grain of salt and in my mind say, well, they didn't mean it in a negative context or a negative fashion. But it just, it's like, well, how do you deal with that? So back to you. Have you felt that sort of stigma or that sort of issue with yourself in your career?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we talked about it. And, it's definitely harder it takes longer for me. I don't know. I feel like it's taking me longer than what it should have to get to where I'm at. Mm-hmm. So not necessarily, I'm on the right track, but things could have happened a lot quicker. I believe if, it wasn't. And like I said, I go one more step for you, and I tell people this, and we talk about police brutality and everything else. I tell people that, there is a stigma that comes with being black. There's also a stigma that comes with being big and black. Yes. And so I happen to have both of those strikes.
You get a double negative.
It's a double negative. So when you step into the room, it's not just that you're black, it's also that you're big and black, and there's certain stigmas that come with that. And if you, read different literature and everything else, a lot of people feel automatic threatening when, someone that is big and black and male steps into the room or into a situation. They don't have to know you from Adam. It's just their natural feeling that they get in their stomach when they see you. They don't know. So you have to constantly fight that, especially in the professional realm, to break down those barriers and make people feel comfortable. And that happens. That's every day. That's every day. I tell people that, you live that every day. You don't take that off. It's something that you wear each and every day of your life.
Yeah. So I agree. I agree 1,000%. I mean, I'm not big, but I am black, so I get it. But when you're in those conversations, you're in those rooms with folks, you really gotta almost, I don't want to say choose your words, but ensure that how you react and how you act to how folks react to you isn't taken in a light where it's negative or aggressive. You know what I mean? I mean, early in my career, man, I got to tell you, I'm hustling, trying to improve myself. I was called aggressive multiple times. So he's aggressive, and it's like, well, wait a minute, I'm trying to get the job done, So I totally get that. So you got to like tailor your approach, and it's unfortunate, but it's the world we exist in, right? But through it all, we've overcome it. So I think it's great. That's key.
Yeah. So who would you say? You talked about your mom. Mm-hmm. But who was or still is a hero for you, and what gives you motivation day in and day out?
That's a good question. So I'll say I have my my goat mountain, as Kobe would say. I got my goat mountain professionally and personally. And I'll give you my top three in both. For personally, it's always going to be my mom. That's my number one. She raised us on her own. Not to give you my lifetime movie story, but she raised six kids on her own, man. She made it happen. I never knew that I was at a loss until I really became an adult. You know what I mean? And looking back and seeing like what she made, and it wasn't a lot. It was not a lot, but I never knew. I always had nice clothes on my back and always had everything else that other kids who had two parents in the household has.
Yes,
How she did it, I
yes,
don't know.
you did. You was always fresh. Yes, you did.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. How she did it, I don't know. I mean, she worked so many jobs. I feel like, somewhere along the lines in my DNA, we got some Jamaican in us, because she worked like 2 or 3 jobs on a consistent basis. So she's my number one. My 1A is going to be my sister, who helped to raise me, because my mom was always working. So she kept me straight, kept me out the streets, and made sure that I did what I needed to do to be successful. I mean, she's probably the strictest coach or warden I ever had, man. You know what I mean? I know we had some coaches growing up, but she was probably the worst by far. But it benefited me in the long run. And the last one on a personal level was my grandmother out of Athens, Georgia, Miss Emma Clark. I mean, she's now deceased, God rest her soul, but just the conversation her and I would have over the years. She grew up in the segregated South, and we would just have some very good key conversations and why education was important to her. She made it important to me. And not many people know, but she went back to school in the later part of her life to become a nurse, man. So she was right around our age now. And I think that's awesome. That's phenomenal, and she would just tell me how important it is to vote, how to go get those degrees, go get those degrees, baby. She would always say, like, don't let nobody stop you, so
Right.
I really appreciate and love and miss her. And I miss those conversations. Professionally, it's always going to go back to Baltimore. It's going to be Reggie Lewis. No, not too many folks probably know who that is. And if you don't, you need to look him up. He was phenomenal, man, and he did some great things at a time when he wasn't supposed to, the 60s, 70s, and early 80s. So he's always going to be my number one. And I idolize the guy. My uncle introduced me to him when I was probably like 7 or 8 years old, and he gave me some information on him because he knew him, by way of living in Baltimore, not personally, but he would just tell me how great he was, how dynamic he was, and he would say, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And I'm like, "Oh, I want to do this, I want to do that." He's like, "No, you want to be like Reggie Lewis." So I always had that going on for me. And my other two are more recent. Eugene Jones is the executive director for the Atlanta Housing Authority, and I'm reading his book, and I'll pick it up real quick. It's called Housing Humans. And in reading as much, getting to know about his story and how he kind of did what I did, circumventing the states, and actually he had actually went to Toronto for a couple of years to be an executive director. We are akin in many ways in that regard. So I really appreciate him. And I think he's phenomenal. I mean, he's done some great works at some very large housing authorities, from Chicago to Indianapolis to Toronto and now Atlanta. So being in that world and in this profession, I look to him as someone who I think I can kind of mimic in so many ways. And lastly is I call him the goat of all goats, is Robert Smith, Bob Smith. If nobody knows who that is, you better look him up. The guy's phenomenal. I've always followed his career as well, but I followed him even more closely over the last few years. He's been like just dropping dimes everywhere, man. Literally and mentally, figuratively. He paid for the whole Morehouse College's graduation, I think 2 years ago. So some of the stuff he's doing is going to be really key for the years to come, because he's going to transform a lot of lives through some of his work, some of his processes. So that's my top 6, man, as you say, my goat mountain, as I'll say. So yeah.
No, that's good. That's good. I mean, most people, they struggle to have one. You had 6, so I mean, that's telling you the depth of who you are as an individual when you have that group of people that you can actually pull from to really make you who you are. So I mean, that speaks volumes about you.
Thank you.
Yeah. If you had to do one thing over in your life, you got a chance to do a do-over, a mulligan, if you will, what would that be, and would you do it? I mean, I got mixed reactions on this question, so it's an interesting question, but I'll let you answer it.
Mike, when you pose that to me, I look at it 2 ways. I mean, of course, there's things you want to do over, but at the same time, have you, or had you do them over, would you be where you're at today? You know what I mean? Like, life is all about opportunities, lessons, and results of those lessons and opportunities. So had a rough patch early on, as we all have. You deal with some things in your 20s that you're not fully prepared for because you're becoming an adult. But I don't think I would change anything, man. And I know it's probably cliche to say, but I think that's who made me the person I am today. You know, you deal with those opportunities and those failures, and you become successful, or you become unsuccessful from as much. I chose the route of success. So yeah, I don't think I change anything.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, like I said, I think some people have different takes on it. A
Yeah.
lot of people say they wouldn't change anything, which, like I said, is interesting because if you had a genie and you had three wishes and like all, would you do it? And a lot of people said that they wouldn't, and I value that from the perspective, especially for myself, like your experiences, like you said, shape or mold who you are and build your character.
Absolutely.
And you need those experiences to build the characteristics that you have. More importantly, like you said, you have children. You're able to pass those lessons down. If you didn't go through them, then it's hard for you to pass the things down to your children if you don't go through those things.
Yeah,
So
you'd come unprepared to do as much. You are totally correct. I like that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So Black History Month, right? We're in it. Is
Mhm.
coming to a close. What does it mean to you? I know, like, when we were in school, we were just talking about it before we got on camera, like what it used to be and what it's turning into now. But what does it mean to
Yeah.
you?
To me, I'd say it means a lot. I constantly surround myself what I call the ancestors, and you can't really see in here, but I got King on one wall. You know what I mean? I got I got Reggie on another. I got Malcolm and Muhammad on another. So I surround myself with the ancestors, and I ensure that by doing as much, my kids are akin to who they are and what they have achieved, and why it's important that they know of them. An example is my son's favorite baseball player, and he's a baseball player, but his favorite baseball player is Jackie Robinson. He never seen Jackie Robinson play, you know what I mean? But he knows of him because of me. I'm showing him about him, and showing the YouTube videos of some of the great stuff he did. And Jackie was a lefty, my son is a lefty, so he kind of took it from there. And another one is Muhammad Ali. He just did a story on him recently, and he was like, "Man, Dad, did you know about his name was Cassius Clay?" And he did that. I'm like, "Oh yeah, man." So we got into that mix, and now he's in love with Muhammad Ali. So he wouldn't have that if I didn't ensure myself of keeping them, close to those folks overall. And I think for you, man, for what you're doing, I think this shouldn't be just, and we share this. I'm going to just say it to the masses. It shouldn't just be for Black History. You should do this sort of dialogue on a monthly basis, 365. Man, I encourage you. If I mean, I know you got a lot going on as a principal, but I encourage you to do as much, because I think it's important that folks of our ethnic hue and others see that there are some truly successful people out there. I mean, we talked about a few the other day on our call that we've
Yeah.
even gone to school with, and I got my old neighbor Greg Ford he's a retired, I think, sergeant in the Army. There's other guys we grew up with. I think Keen is a principal, I think, in the city, and Big Kev is out in Japan. So getting those folks on in the social medium and letting them kind of tell their story, because I'm sure they all have stories, is going to be key to future successes for others, man. So I encourage you, in the spirit of Black history and the spirit of the ancestors, to keep this sort of forum going, man, because this is awesome. Hats off to you.
Yeah, man, I appreciate that. I have gotten that from others. I never thought that I would get that. I mean, I literally really wanted to do this again to celebrate Black history, to give people an idea, and whether they looked at it or not, right? It's there for them. You know what I mean? Like, once you put content out there, whether you look at it today, tomorrow, or 10 years from now, it's there for you. It's a resource.
Yes.
And so I just wanted to be there for resource purposes for everybody. But everybody has said they want me to continue doing this, and I'm like, wow, okay. Now I've had to regroup, and my initial plan of, like, I was going to drop this off and be like, all right, cool, back to your regularly scheduled
Keep
program.
it going, brother. Keep it
Right,
going. Right.
right.
Rehashing, if you will, because, to your point, man, you never know what people are going through. There might be somebody that's, 20 years younger than we are, looking to break through and they don't know how, and they might hear the story of Will Pass or Mike Brown or, any other folks you're going to interview, and they're like, okay, well, man, if those jokers can do it, then why can't I? You know what I mean? So it's just important to keep this medium going. And again, I applaud you and I love you. I appreciate you because this is a great dynamic thing that you have going, man. So keep it up, definitely.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. We got one more question for you
Yeah.
before I let you off the hot seat. So we talk about it all the time. We're going to have a lot of kids that are going to be looking at this. And so you at the age of 17, I know it's hard for you to remember back, but think about,
man, that's a long time ago now,
right?
isn't it?
I never thought I'd say that, but I mean, it's a minute ago.
Ooh, yeah,
So the 17-year-old you, if
yeah,
you had to go back in the time machine, back to the future, and visit him,
yeah.
He's at the lunch table. You're going to walk up to him. What are you going to say to him?
Oh man, okay, that's a good one. Let me think. Okay, I would say this. I would say work hard. Always work hard at everything you want to achieve. Write down your goals. Be consistent with anything that you're going to do to be successful. Stay hungry. Stay hungry. Stay hungry for success. Stay hungry for the success of others. And ensure that you lift your brother or your sister up to bring them to that next level with you. It's all about. I look at success as not about you making it, but about others making it as well, right? Because you want to change dynamics. You want to change lives. Stay focused. Keep your eye on the prize, as my grandmother would say. And last but not least, stay humble, man. You got to stay humble. The minute you lose your humbleness, you're going to lose everything else that comes along with that. So stay humble, stay focused, and stay hungry is what I would tell that young Will Pass with the high top fade and the step in it. You know what I mean?
It's funny. I asked this question to the last person I interviewed, and he said, I'll tell him to eat better.
Oh, hey, might be something there
I think
too.
your 17-year-old self now listen to you. He's going to go straight to McDonald's after you say that. He's going like, man, what are you talking about?
Might be something with that too. But yeah, I could see that. I could see that.
Yeah. So listen, Will, I know you're a busy man. I applaud you with everything that you've accomplished. I've followed you from afar. I can't be more proud of you, brother, on the things that you have accomplished, where you've come from to where you are. It's not a surprise to me, but I'm nonetheless proud of you for everything that you have done. And it is only the beginning for you, I feel, on where you're actually going in your life and where your career is going. So I'm just happy to be, in the passenger seat, watching you ascend on, and it's going to be exciting for me to see where you go from here, man.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I echo those same sentiments for you as well. I mean, I think you're doing your thing, man. Last time we saw each other in person, we were at, I won't say where we were, but we were having a couple of cocktails. That was quite a few years ago. So
Right.
I echo those same sentiments, man. I think the sky's the limit for you as well, man. And you're doing some exciting things. And I see your post on LinkedIn with the kids, and man, it's awesome, man. You were killing it, as they say. So keep it up, my brother. And it's, I look forward to keeping in contact with you more so now than before. First and foremost, because we can do some great things together. I really believe that. But also watching you become even more successful than you already are.
Appreciate you, brother. I will definitely stay in touch.
Yes,
Appreciate
sir.
you. And like I said, everything that we're getting out here today, I'm going to make sure that gets out there to you and yours, man. So appreciate you.
No doubt, man. Good talk.
All right.
Take care.